Hello, my flower friends. It's time again for another flower. What? You're shocked? I mean, you're like, why am I here? And of course, you're sitting here making flowers, so obviously you're here for flowers. And you're like, what? She said more flowers? Of course it's more flowers. It's flower day. I mean, it's every day is flower day, but today, for flower day, we are making a mini dogwood stem because dogwoods are beautiful and we love them. So right now, we are going to go ahead and go to my website right now, snag the digital download so that you can make this right along with me. And it is a PDF stencil if you wanted to use freezer paper and iron that sucker on and hand cut it. Or you can use your digital cutting machine like your Cricut Maker or Silhouette Cameo and go ahead and cut these out with that. So this is a mini stem, but you could totally make it longer and adjust how many buds, flowers you want on this guy. But for this one, I'm just doing a mini stem today. So I have one of the bigger petals and 3 of the smaller petals. So it just depends on how big or little that you are wanting it today. And then I also have some leaves and we are gonna go ahead and get started. So first things first, we are going to grab some pan pastels and dye kind of like the edges of all of our tips of our petals. So for this one, I am using a cream colored pan pastel, but you could use like pinks and blues and purples or greens. I feel like the amount of color choices are endless on how to make this beautiful. So I am using a kind of like a creamy yellow for this one, and it is yellow ochre tint. I love using pan pastels. They work so beautifully on the felt, and it just really grabs to the fibers and it just brings your flowers so much life. So when I'm doing this, I'm literally just adding it to the tips of all of my petals right on the outside, kind of light, and it's more of an accent, but it really, really gives life to your flowers. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is we are going to do our centers of our little flowers. So I'm getting just some scrap felt here. This is the pea soup color. And I'm using my pinking shears that have the small scalloped edge to them, and that just totally adds so much to your flowers and your centers because it just gives it so much more flow and little bumpies and bobbles, and it looks so good. Link below to get your own shears. They're pretty cheap on Amazon and they add so much. Highly recommend. So this piece of felt is about 2 inches wide, not a huge deal. And then we're going to go ahead and cut it about 1 inch. Okay, I guess it's like 2 inches long and 1/4 of an inch wide, I suppose. But I mean, as you can see, I am totally just guessing and winging it here. There's no like specific measurements, but it is about 1/4 of an inch wide. And so I'm doing 2 of those, and then I'm going to cut little fringes through every single little valley of those little bumpity bumps. And I'm gonna go all the way across, but not all the way down, because you still want your strip to be connected to itself. You definitely don't wanna lose any of your little frills and fringes. So go ahead and cut both of them all the way down. We're gonna go ahead and add a little bit of glue along the base and just roll this tightly all the way down. Now on our second one, we're actually gonna go ahead and cut this one in half. So this one's about 1 inch long. So we have 2 different size flowers going on with this flower. We have the bigger one and the smaller one. So the smaller one definitely needs a smaller little center. So I cut that one in half. So this is about 1 inch by 1/4 of an inch, but save that other half. So that way when you're making multiple of these flowers, you have material ready to go. We're just gonna go ahead and roll that the same way. Be careful, these are so small. They get away from you so easy, and make sure you trim up all of that extra glue. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and grab our larger dogwood daisy, not dogwood daisy, it's a dogwood flower petals. What am I doing? I'm crazy. Okay, and then I'm using a little bit of glue on the back of each of our flower petals, And we're gonna actually put a little bit at the base of that hump right there, just a tiny, tiny bit, and we're gonna fold it back. And that's gonna go ahead and make this like really, really beautiful, I don't know what you want to call it, just more dimension and fun on the front of our flowers. Just kind of how dogwoods are. They're kind of like flared out funky on the front. And this is how you make that little flared out look on your petals. I'm also using my Surebonder glue gun today because I love it and the glue works so fantastic, and I love the fine detail point because it just puts exactly the right amount of glue on it. Link below to snag yours. Ta-da! See, isn't it so pretty on the top where it just kind of gives it so much dimension there for you? So now we're gonna go ahead and put a little bit of glue at the bottom of each petal. You don't wanna go to the very center, just on the edge there. And we're gonna pinch our petals closed until they make that like folded feel, and that's gonna make like a concave on there too. And it just like, I mean, look at that petal, isn't she gorgeous? And she's looking so dogwoody. All right, so now we have our petals just like this. And oh my goodness, I am losing the words today on petal terminology because I am an expert petal flower biologist, botanist, whatever. Anyways, so we're gonna do the same thing on our smaller petal stem, petal shape, whatever. Just follow along in the video. You see what I'm talking about. Anyways, we're gonna do the exact same thing. Add a little bit of glue at the tips and then roll it over. And make sure you're doing this on the bottom so that way the dyed side is on top, because you definitely want to see all your hard work that you dyed all your petals. We're gonna do the same thing, add a little bit of glue on our 4 edges right at the base of our petals, but not in the middle. And we're gonna squeeze them and pinch them shut. You could do 1 petal at a time if it's a little bit hard. I find if I do both sides at the same time, I can kind of like manipulate my fingers to do all 4 at once. But it's totally up to you, and that is definitely years and years of practice. So if you need to do 1 at a time, by all means do 1 at a time, because you don't want to accidentally put glue down and then not get it glued up. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get a 1/18 gauge wire here, and we're gonna go ahead and make just a little loop-de-loop at the top. We're not making our typical snail, just a tiny little loop. And then we're gonna take one of our flower petals that we didn't do anything with, poke it through, and then we're going to add some glue, and we're gonna kind of roll this up, kind of almost like a rose would be, all the way around, and that's gonna be our buds. These are just like dogwood flowers that have not opened up yet. So I start with one side, and then I take the petal that's directly across, add some glue, and then just like fold it right back over it. And then I'll do the same thing for the sides. And I'm kind of putting glue at the like, not at the bottom, but I wouldn't say at the middle either. I would say like right below the middle point, I'm putting just a line of glue and holding it and just making sure I'm securing and making sure that glue is set before we move on. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and take some 18 gauge wire. No, that's not 18 gauge wire. It is 22 gauge wire. I'm going crazy. We're gonna go ahead and cut a little amount off. This is probably about like 5 inches, but to be honest, if it's a little bit less or a little bit longer, it is not that big of a deal. So we're gonna go ahead and make that same little loop on one side there. Oops, that is not a loop. We are gonna make a table on that one side. It's just a very, very small little table, and we're gonna fish it through our smaller petals here. And then we're gonna take our tiny little center, put a little glue on that base where that table is, and then add our center. Ta-da! And just push that through until she is nice and secure, and you have a tiny little small budding little dogwood. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and take the other side of that wire, and we're gonna do the exact same thing that we did on the longer wire and just make a little loop-de-loop and then put our other bud on there. Make sure when you're doing this that you're your die is on the bottom because we are covering that up when we're gluing it. So when you're putting your flower petal onto the wire, make sure that your die is facing down so that it is facing outward once it is done. So if you need to put the flower petal on before you do that curved on the wire, you totally can. There is actually a little slit and hole that I made on here earlier. So if you need to, make sure you do that beforehand. Or if the hole's big enough, you can definitely just like slide it right over that little loop-de-loop. And this is the exact same thing we're doing. We're just throwing glue down and just pinching it up to make a bud here and just making sure we're holding to make sure the glue is set. All right, we are so close to being done, guys. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and take another chunk of our 22 gauge wire, and we are going to make our one side is gonna be leaves and one side is gonna be for the flower. So one is about 6 inches long, 5 to 6 inches long, and then the other side is about, the tiny little cut off piece of wire is probably about like 2 inches or 1.5 inches. So on one side, we're gonna go ahead and make a little table again, fish it through our larger petal, do the same thing, add a little bit of glue and put our center on it. I also, when I'm putting glue on this center one, I kind of like to put a little bit of glue just kind of coming up on those petals just a little bit so they like fold up really, really nicely and it just attached really well to that center. But seriously, look how pretty she is already. I love it, I love it, I love it. So you could do like individual blooms like this too, just popping through, which would also be really fun. So on the end of that wire, we're just gonna do a pinch leaf right at the end. Super, super simple. Little bit of glue and then just put it right between the wire and then pinch it tight. So on our little wire that's about 2 inches long, we're going to do the same thing, 2 pinch leaves on both sides. Trim off any glue that kind of spilled out, and then we're going to twist them tightly around our other leaf. So there's going to be basically two, like, I don't know how many, 4 flowers and then 3 leaves on here. So we're going to keep the leaves by the leaves and the flowers by the flowers. Now, again, if you wanted to make this longer, you could totally adjust and make different, you know, combinations of leaves and flowers, and it's super beautiful. I actually make a longer version of this, and it is super fun as well. So we're gonna start with our bud at the very, very top and just twist, 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 twist. If you wanted to, you could also not put flowers on both sides and use floral tape. But twisting is also super easy and fun too. So on the next one, we're gonna take and put our flower down first, and then we're gonna twist our leaves around for the second time and kind of bend those up so they're kind of like behind our flower, and you just make this beautiful accent behind it. It's a splash of color that breaks up the white too that I really, really like. And seriously, wasn't that super easy? I mean, it's a little tedious because there's a lot of different petals, but not hard at all, and you will be rewarded with a beautiful dogwood stem. And again, you can readjust the organization of this and put the flowers in different orders, and I love it, love it, love it. All right, this is the time to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you're not missing anything. Get that digital download in the description below off the website. Helps definitely support my channel and makes me make more videos for you guys. So check it out and check out all the other digital downloads that I have to offer as well. All right, guys, it's been certainly fun today, and I will catch you on the next flower tutorial. Love y'all. See you later.